I discovered my grandson and his infant living under a bridge, so I flew them home on my private jet and... The old man did not expect the day to change his life. He had woken up early, just like he always did. The house felt quiet, almost too quiet, but he was used to that now. After breakfast, he dressed neatly and asked his driver to take him into the city. He had some personal work to handle, nothing urgent, just things he had been putting off for too long. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. The car moved smoothly through the familiar roads. Tall buildings passed by the window, shops opening for the day, people rushing to work. He watched it all in silence. At his age, he no longer felt the need to talk much. Life had taught him that silence often said more than words. As the car approached a busy part of the city, traffic suddenly slowed down. Cars began stopping one by one. Horns sounded in frustration. The driver glanced back apologetically and said there seemed to be a blockage ahead. The old man nodded. He was not in a hurry. The car finally came to a full stop near an underpass. It was not a place he liked. The concrete walls were dark, marked with stains and faded paint. The smell of dust and old water hung in the air. People usually avoided stopping here for long. While waiting, his eyes wandered outside the window. That was when he noticed someone sitting near one of the pillars. A young man sat on the ground, wrapped in worn blankets, surrounded by a few bags. In his arms, he held a small bundle. At first, the old man assumed it was just another homeless person. He had seen many over the years. But then the bundle moved slightly, and a soft cry reached his ears through the closed window. It was a baby. The old man leaned forward, his heart tightening. He looked closer. The young man adjusted the blanket gently, rocking the infant with care. There was something protective in his posture, something deeply human. As the old man studied the young man's face, a strange feeling crept over him. The face looked tired, unshaven, marked by stress and sleepless nights. Yet beneath all that, there was something else. Something familiar. His breath caught slightly. He could not explain why, but his chest felt heavy. The eyes, the shape of the face, the way the young man held his jaw when he looked down, it all stirred memories he had buried long ago. The old man shifted in his seat, unsettled. He told himself he was imagining things. After all, the city was full of people. Faces often reminded him of others. But the feeling did not go away. Traffic showed no sign of moving. The driver turned to ask if he wanted to take another route. Instead of answering, the old man surprised even himself. "Wait," he said softly. "I want to step out for a moment." The driver looked confused but nodded. He opened the door, and the noise of the city rushed in. The old man slowly stepped out of the car, adjusting his coat. His legs were not as strong as they once were, but he walked steadily. As he moved closer, the young man noticed him. His body stiffened. He pulled the baby closer, his eyes filled with caution. Life on the streets had taught him to be careful. "I don't mean any harm," the old man said calmly, raising a hand slightly. His voice was gentle, not commanding. The young man did not respond, but he did not move away either. The baby whimpered softly, then quieted as the young man rocked again. Up close, the feeling grew stronger. The old man's heart pounded. The young man's eyes were dark and tired, but they held a quiet strength. A strength the old man had seen before. "How old is the baby?" the old man asked, keeping his tone light. The young man hesitated. "A few months," he replied quietly. His voice was rough, like someone who had not spoken much in days. The old man nodded. He noticed how carefully the baby was wrapped, how the young man's hands were steady despite the cold air. This was not neglect. This was survival. "Are you managing okay?" the old man asked. The young man gave a small, bitter smile. "I do my best," he said. That simple answer hit the old man harder than any long explanation could have. He remembered saying those same words many years ago, in a different life, under very different circumstances. A sudden memory flashed in his mind. A younger version of himself, standing in a hospital hallway. A decision made in fear. A path taken that could never be undone. He shook his head slightly, pushing the thought away. He focused on the present. "Do you have family?" he asked gently. The young man looked down at the baby. His jaw tightened. "Not anymore," he said. The old man felt a sharp pain in his chest. The answer felt too familiar. Too close to something he had lived with for decades. The baby stirred again, letting out a small cry. The young man quickly tried to calm him, whispering soft words. The old man watched, his eyes moist. "You're doing a good job," he said without thinking. The young man looked up, surprised. No one had said that to him in a long time. He nodded slightly, unsure how to respond. The sound of a horn broke the moment. Traffic ahead had begun to move. The driver called out that they needed to go. The old man did not move. He felt rooted to the spot. "What's your name?" he asked. The young man paused, then answered. The name did not matter. It was not the name that shook the old man. It was the voice, the tone, the familiar way the words were shaped. The old man swallowed hard. His hands trembled slightly. "Do you need help?" he asked. The young man hesitated again. Pride and fear battled inside him. "I don't want trouble," he said. "There will be no trouble," the old man replied firmly but kindly. "Just help." The young man studied the old man's face. He saw sincerity there. Not pity. Not judgment. Just concern. "I don't know what kind of help you can give," the young man said. The old man took a deep breath. "More than you think," he replied. For a moment, neither spoke. The city noise filled the silence. Cars passed, people walked by, most without noticing the small moment unfolding under the bridge. The old man felt tears threaten his eyes. He turned slightly away, composing himself. He had built an entire life on control, on not showing weakness. But this moment was breaking through his defenses. "Please," he said softly. "At least let me get you and the baby somewhere warm. Just for today." The young man looked at the baby, then back at the old man. He nodded slowly. The old man felt a strange mix of relief and fear. He did not fully understand why this mattered so much. He only knew he could not walk away. As they walked back toward the car, the old man glanced once more at the young man's face. The resemblance was undeniable now. It felt like the past was standing right beside him, wrapped in blankets and hardship. The driver opened the door, shocked by the sight. The old man simply said, "They're coming with us." The car pulled away from the underpass, leaving behind the cold concrete and shadows. The old man stared out the window, his mind racing. He did not yet know the truth. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that this meeting was no accident, and that the life he thought was settled was about to change forever. The car moved slowly through traffic, but inside the vehicle, time felt frozen. The old man sat upright, his hands resting on his knees. His eyes kept drifting toward the young man sitting across from him, holding the baby close to his chest. Neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy, filled with thoughts neither knew how to express. The old man studied the young man's face again. Now that they were out of the shadows of the underpass, the resemblance was clearer. The same curve of the nose. The same deep-set eyes. Even the small crease between the brows when he frowned. It was like looking at a living memory. His heart began to race. A name echoed in his mind, one he had not spoken aloud in years. He told himself it was impossible. He had searched once, long ago. He had assumed the worst. Life had moved on, or so he thought. The baby shifted slightly, letting out a tiny sound. The young man immediately adjusted his grip, rocking gently. The old man noticed the instinctive care, the way his arms formed a shield around the child. That sight made something inside him break. How old is the baby exactly? The old man asked again, his voice softer now. Almost 4 months, the young man replied. His eyes stayed on the baby. 4 months. The number hit the old man like a blow. His mind started doing unwanted calculations. Timelines. Years. Lost years. The car stopped at a red light. Sunlight poured through the window, lighting the young man's face fully. There was no doubt anymore. The truth rose slowly but firmly, like something that could no longer be ignored. Look at me, the old man said quietly. The young man hesitated, then lifted his gaze. Their eyes met. In that instant, recognition passed between them like an electric shock. The young man's face went pale. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to speak but could not. You, the young man whispered. The old man felt his throat tighten. His voice trembled despite his effort to stay calm. It's me, he said. The baby let out a small cry, sensing the tension. The young man hugged the child closer, his body curling inward as if to protect not just the baby, but himself. I thought you were gone, the old man continued, his words coming slowly. I searched. Not enough. I know that now. But I believed. I believed you didn't want to be found. The young man swallowed hard. His eyes filled with emotion he had kept buried for years. I waited, he said quietly. For a long time. The old man closed his eyes for a brief moment. Guilt washed over him in a wave so strong it made his chest ache. He remembered the arguments. The distance. The pride that had kept him from trying harder. When you disappeared, the old man said, I told myself you were angry. That you needed space. I was wrong. The young man let out a short, bitter laugh. I didn't disappear, he said. I was pushed out. The words hung in the air, sharp and painful. Traffic began moving again, but neither noticed. The driver kept his eyes forward, sensing he was witnessing something deeply personal. The old man looked at the baby again. The small face, peaceful now, unaware of the storm of emotions around it. And this child? He asked, though he already knew the answer. The young man nodded slowly. My child. The old man's breath caught. My great-grandchild, he whispered. He felt dizzy. The world he thought he understood suddenly felt unfamiliar. A life had been born without his knowledge. 4 months of first smiles, first cries, first moments he had missed. I didn't know, he said, his voice breaking. No one told me. There was no one to tell, the young man replied. I was alone. The old man covered his mouth with his hand, trying to steady himself. Memories flooded his mind. His own son, years ago. The mistakes he had made as a father. Now they stood before him again, multiplied. Why didn't you come back? He asked, though he feared the answer. The young man looked away. I was ashamed, he admitted. I had nothing. No job. No place. I didn't want you to see me like this. The old man shook his head slowly. I should have seen you anyway. Silence fell again. Outside, the city continued its noise, unaware of the quiet reckoning happening inside the car. The baby stirred once more. The old man watched closely. He noticed the tiny fingers, the way they curled around the young man's jacket. His jacket. That same jacket now holding a new generation. What about the baby's mother? The old man asked carefully. The young man's face darkened. She didn't stay, he said simply. Life was already hard. She couldn't do it. The old man nodded. He did not judge. He had learned long ago that life rarely followed clean lines. I'm tired, the young man added quietly. Not just my body. Everything. Those words pierced the old man deeply. He had felt that kind of tiredness once, after losing someone he loved. It was not sleep that fixed it. It was hope. I never stopped caring, the old man said, his voice firm now. Even when I failed. The young man looked at him again. Caring doesn't change the past, he said. No, the old man agreed. But it can change what comes next. They reached their destination. The driver parked and stepped out quickly, opening the door. The old man hesitated before leaving the car. He knew once he stepped out, nothing would be the same. He looked at the young man, really looked at him. Not as a stranger, not as a mistake, but as family. I don't expect forgiveness, the old man said. I only ask for a chance to do better. The young man's eyes glistened. He did not answer right away. He glanced down at the baby, then back up. For the baby, he said finally. I'll listen. That was enough. It was more than the old man had hoped for. As they stepped out of the car together, the old man felt the weight of years pressing on him. But beneath it, there was something else. A fragile, unfamiliar feeling. Possibility. For the first time in a very long time, the past and the present stood face to face. And between them, wrapped in blankets and quiet breaths, was the future. They sat in a quiet room, far from the noise of traffic and the cold air under the bridge. The baby slept peacefully now, stretched across a soft surface, breathing in slow, steady rhythms. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, the young man allowed his shoulders to relax. The old man sat across from him, hands folded, waiting. He did not rush. He had learned that real stories came out only when someone felt safe enough to speak. The young man stared at the floor for a long moment before he began. My life didn't fall apart all at once, he said quietly. It happened slowly, piece by piece. The old man nodded, encouraging him to continue. I had a job once, the young man said. Nothing special, but it paid the bills. I thought I was doing fine. I thought I had time. He let out a short breath. Then the company downsized. Just like that, I was gone. The old man listened closely. He had heard similar stories many times, but this one cut deeper. At first, I wasn't worried, the young man continued. I told myself I'd find something better. I didn't want to take just any job. I was proud. Too proud. The old man felt the sting of recognition. Pride had cost him things too. Days turned into weeks, the young man said. Bills piled up. Calls came in. I stopped answering. He looked up briefly, his eyes tired. I didn't want anyone to know I was failing. The room stayed silent, except for the soft sound of the baby breathing. The people around me started drifting away, the young man went on. Friends stopped calling when I stopped pretending everything was okay. Some tried to help, but I pushed them away. Why? The old man asked gently. Because accepting help felt like admitting I was weak, the young man replied. The old man lowered his gaze. He understood that feeling all too well. The relationship with the baby's mother was already shaky, the young man said. We were both stressed, both scared. We argued about everything. He paused, swallowing hard. When she found out she was pregnant, things got worse. The old man leaned forward slightly. She wanted stability, the young man continued. A plan. I couldn't give her that. Not then. He shook his head slowly. I promised things I couldn't deliver. I lied to myself more than I lied to her. The baby stirred slightly, then settled again. When the baby was born, I thought that would fix everything, the young man said. I thought love would be enough. His voice cracked. I was wrong. The old man felt his chest tighten but stayed quiet. She left one morning, the young man said. No note. No warning. Just gone. The words landed heavily in the room. I panicked, he admitted. I had no money. No place. And now, a newborn who depended on me for everything. The old man closed his eyes briefly. I tried shelters, the young man said. Some were full. Some felt dangerous. I couldn't risk the baby. He clenched his fists. People think shelters are safe for everyone. They're not. The old man nodded slowly. He did not argue. Every door felt closed, the young man continued. And every time I thought about calling you. He stopped. The old man waited. I remembered how things ended, the young man said softly. The disappointment. The words we said. I didn't want you to see me like that. With nothing. The old man felt tears sting his eyes. So instead, the young man said, I stayed quiet. Silence stretched between them. I spent my last money on diapers and formula, he continued. After that, I didn't know what to do. The old man's hands tightened together. I slept wherever I could, the young man said. Parks. Buses. Anywhere warm enough. He took a deep breath. Eventually, I found the bridge. The old man pictured it again. The cold concrete. The shadows. It wasn't home, the young man said. But it was hidden. Dry. And people didn't bother us much. He looked down. I told myself it was temporary. Days under the bridge blurred together. Cold nights. Loud noises. Fear that never fully went away. I kept the baby close, the young man said. Always. The old man nodded, his throat tight. I did everything I could, the young man said. I found odd jobs. Cleaned where I could. Took help when it didn't come with questions. He laughed softly, without humor. Pride still followed me down there. The old man finally spoke. You survived, he said. Both of you. Barely, the young man replied. He looked at the baby again. But I couldn't give up. Not on this. The old man felt his chest ache with emotion. I didn't want pity, the young man said. I just wanted a chance to stand again. He met the old man's eyes. I didn't think that chance would come like this. The old man stood slowly and walked closer. He looked down at the sleeping child. So small. So unaware of the struggle behind every breath. I should have been there, the old man said quietly. I should have made it easier for you to come back. The young man did not argue. All that matters now, the old man continued, is that you're not alone anymore. The young man exhaled deeply, as if releasing years of tension. For the first time since the bridge, the weight on his chest felt lighter. The bridge had been their refuge. Their last option. But it would not be their future. The room stayed quiet for a long time after the young man finished speaking. The baby slept on, unaware of how much weight had just been lifted into the air. The old man did not speak right away. He did not sigh, shake his head, or ask why things had gone so wrong. He simply sat there, listening to the silence as carefully as he had listened to every word. The young man waited for what he expected to come next. He braced himself for disappointment, for anger, for questions that felt like blame. He had prepared answers in his mind, defenses he had built over years. His shoulders were tense, ready to absorb judgment. But it did not come. Instead, the old man leaned forward slightly and asked, "When did you last eat?" The question caught the young man off guard. He blinked. I'm not sure, he said honestly. Yesterday, I think. Maybe the day before. The old man nodded once, as if noting something important. And the baby? Regular, the young man replied quickly. I always made sure of that. I can see, the old man said quietly. He looked toward the baby, noticing the steady rise and fall of the tiny chest, the relaxed hands. This was not a child who had been ignored. Has the baby seen a doctor? The old man asked. The young man hesitated. At first. When he was born. After that. No. I couldn't manage it. The old man nodded again. No lecture. No sigh. Is the baby sick? No, the young man said quickly. Just small. But alert. I can see that too, the old man replied. Each question was simple. Direct. Human. None of them carried accusation. The young man felt something shift inside him. Confusion replaced fear. The old man continued. Are you sleeping at all? The young man let out a quiet breath. Not much. How long since you last felt safe? That question hit harder than any harsh word could have. The young man opened his mouth, then closed it again. He shook his head slightly. I don't remember, he said. The old man absorbed that answer in silence. For years, people had expected him to react quickly, to judge, to decide, to control. He had done all of that in his life. It had cost him more than he wanted to admit. This time, he chose something different. The young man finally spoke again, his voice cautious. Aren't you angry? The old man looked at him. Really looked at him. Not at his situation, not at his failures, but at the person sitting in front of him. I am many things, the old man said slowly. Angry is not one of them. The young man frowned. Why not? Because anger would be easy, the old man replied. And easy reactions are usually the wrong ones. The young man did not know what to say to that. The old man stood and walked slowly across the room, his steps measured. He stopped near the window, looking out at the city. Cars moved below. People hurried along sidewalks. Life went on, unaware of the quiet turning point happening above it. I spent a long time believing that consequences alone taught lessons, the old man said. I believed that people only learned through loss. He turned back. I was wrong. The young man's eyes widened slightly. Loss teaches pain, the old man continued. Not growth. The room felt warmer now, though nothing had changed except the words being spoken. The young man shifted in his seat. I don't expect anything, he said quickly. I'm not asking for. I know, the old man interrupted gently. And that matters. He returned to his seat. I asked myself something under that bridge, the old man said. Not who failed. Not who was right or wrong. The young man listened closely. I asked myself whether I wanted to punish the past, the old man said, or protect the future. The baby stirred slightly, as if responding to the words. That child, the old man continued, nodding toward the baby, did nothing to deserve the weight of our mistakes. The young man swallowed hard. You've already paid enough, the old man said. With fear. With hunger. With silence. The young man's hands trembled slightly. He had not realized how badly he needed to hear that. So this is the test, the old man went on. Not for you. For me. The young man looked up. A test. Yes, the old man said. Of who I choose to be now. He leaned forward. I can scold you, he said. Remind you of every mistake. Tell you what you should have done. The young man nodded slowly. Or, the old man said, I can ask what you need today. The room was completely silent. The young man's voice came out barely above a whisper. I need help. The word seemed to cost him everything. The old man did not smile. He did not react with triumph or relief. He simply nodded, as if the answer confirmed what he already knew. Then that is where we start, he said. The young man felt tears rise to his eyes. He turned away, embarrassed. There's no shame in needing help, the old man said quietly. Only in refusing it when a child depends on you. The young man nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. The old man reached into his pocket and took out his phone. He did not make a dramatic call. He did not announce his plans. He simply sent a short message. The young man watched, unsure what was happening. I'm not fixing everything today, the old man said, setting the phone down. Life doesn't work like that. The young man nodded. But today, the old man continued, you will eat. You will sleep. And the baby will be seen by a doctor. The young man's breath caught. And after that? He asked. After that, the old man said, we talk about tomorrow. The simplicity of the plan felt unreal. You're not angry, the young man said again, as if testing the truth of it. "I am responsible," the old man replied. "There's a difference." The baby let out a small sound, then settled again. The old man stood once more and walked closer to the baby. He looked down, his expression softening. "This one deserves better than silence and concrete," he said. The young man nodded, unable to speak. The old man straightened. "So here is my decision," he said calmly. The young man tensed, waiting. "I will not punish you," the old man said. "I will support you." The words landed gently but carried immense weight. "But support comes with honesty," the old man added. "And effort. From both of us." The young man nodded quickly. "I'll do anything." "I know," the old man said. "And we'll do it step by step." In that moment, something fundamental shifted. Not just circumstances. Identity. The young man was no longer just someone who had failed. He was someone being trusted again. And the old man was no longer just someone who regretted the past. He was someone choosing compassion over control. That quiet choice, made without anger or spectacle, would change all their lives. Not because it erased the past, but because it finally allowed a future to begin. Nothing about the rest of the day felt loud or dramatic. There were no raised voices, no rushed movements, no explanations given to people who did not need them. The old man handled everything quietly, the way he always had when something truly mattered. A call was made. Then another. Short conversations. Careful words. Arrangements formed without spectacle. The young man watched from a chair near the baby, unsure what to do with his hands. He felt like someone standing on unfamiliar ground, waiting to be told whether it would hold his weight or give way beneath him. Within an hour, a doctor arrived. Not a crowd. Not a scene. Just a calm professional who spoke softly and moved with care. The baby was examined gently. Heart. Lungs. Weight. Reflexes. The young man held his breath through most of it, his eyes never leaving the small body on the table. Undernourished, but not dangerously so, the doctor said. Alert. Strong grip. Responsive. The young man exhaled shakily. "We'll run a few tests to be safe," the doctor continued. "But overall, this child is doing better than expected." The old man nodded. "Do whatever is necessary." There was no discussion of cost. When the doctor left, the young man sat down heavily, his legs suddenly weak. He rested his elbows on his knees and pressed his hands together, trying to steady himself. "Thank you," he said quietly, not looking up. The old man sat across from him. "You don't need to thank me," he replied. "This is what should have happened a long time ago." The young man looked up then, confusion flickering across his face. The old man stood. "We're leaving soon," he said. "Leaving?" the young man repeated. "Yes." The young man hesitated. "Where are we going?" The old man paused, choosing his words carefully. "Home." The word felt heavy in the air. The young man's first instinct was disbelief. "I can't." "You can," the old man said gently. "And you will." "I don't mean a shelter," the old man added calmly, as if anticipating the fear rising in the young man's chest. "And I don't mean temporary arrangements." The young man stared at him. "Then what do you mean?" "I mean safety," the old man said. For a moment, the young man said nothing. His mind raced through reasons this could not be real. Pride whispered warnings. Fear told him hope was dangerous. "I don't want charity," he said finally. "This isn't charity," the old man replied. "It's responsibility." The young man swallowed hard. They did not take a public car. There was no waiting at crowded terminals. No questions asked. When they arrived at the private airstrip, the young man froze. The plane stood quietly on the tarmac, clean and still, its presence calm rather than flashy. A few staff members waited nearby, respectful and discreet. The young man stopped walking. "This isn't for us," he said. The old man turned to him. "It is," he replied. The young man shook his head slowly. "I slept under a bridge last night." "And tonight," the old man said, "you won't." The words hit harder than expected. They boarded without ceremony. No one stared. No one asked questions. A seat was prepared with blankets. The baby was settled carefully, surrounded by warmth and quiet. The young man sat beside the baby, barely breathing, afraid that if he moved too much the moment would vanish. As the plane began to move, he looked out the window. Only hours earlier, he had been sitting on cold concrete, listening to traffic roar above him, counting diapers and minutes. Now, the ground slowly fell away. His chest tightened. The old man sat across the aisle, watching without interrupting. The young man pressed his forehead lightly against the window. His reflection stared back at him. Tired eyes. A face marked by hardship. But behind it, something unfamiliar flickered. Hope. He felt ashamed of it at first. Hope had disappointed him before. The baby stirred, letting out a soft sound. The young man smiled despite himself, brushing a finger gently across the tiny hand. "We're okay," he whispered. He did not know if he was saying it to the baby or to himself. The plane climbed higher. The city shrank below, becoming a pattern of lights and lines. The bridge disappeared entirely. The old man spoke quietly. "When we land, there will be time to rest. Nothing else today." The young man nodded. "No decisions tonight," the old man added. "No expectations." The young man looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" The old man answered honestly. "Because I already lost you once." Silence followed, not heavy, but thoughtful. The young man leaned back, exhaustion finally catching up with him. His eyes closed, just for a moment. When he opened them again, the baby was asleep, wrapped in clean blankets, breathing evenly. The young man felt something loosen inside his chest. A knot he had carried for years began to ease. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, he was not thinking about survival. He was thinking about tomorrow. Not with fear, but with the fragile, unfamiliar feeling that maybe, just maybe, life was not done offering him chances. As the plane continued through the quiet sky, the past stayed below. And ahead of them, waiting without judgment, was safety. The estate was quiet when they arrived. Wide open space, tall trees, and still air replaced the noise of the city. Nothing rushed here. Nothing demanded attention. For the young man, the calm felt almost unsettling. He stepped inside slowly, holding the baby close, as if expecting someone to tell him he did not belong. The floors were clean. The rooms were warm. Everything smelled faintly of fresh air and polish. He had imagined this place many times over the years. Not like this. Not as someone returning broken. The old man noticed his hesitation. "You don't need to be careful," he said gently. "You're home." The word again. Home. They settled into a quiet sitting room. No staff lingered. No interruptions came. The old man made sure of that. The baby slept peacefully, placed in a nearby cradle that had not been used in years. Seeing it filled made the room feel different. Alive. The young man sat on the edge of a chair, his back straight, his hands resting tightly on his knees. The old man took a seat across from him. This time, he did not wait for the young man to speak. "I failed you," he said plainly. The young man looked up, startled. "I don't mean in small ways," the old man continued. "I mean in the ways that mattered." Silence followed, thick but honest. "I kept my distance because it was easier," the old man said. "I assumed you were strong enough to figure things out alone." He shook his head slowly. That was pride, not wisdom. The young man swallowed hard. Hearing the words spoken so clearly unsettled him. "When you stopped calling," the old man went on, "I told myself it was your choice. That you needed space." He looked directly at the young man. I never asked if you were hurting. The young man felt his chest tighten. I thought if I reached out, the old man said, I would be interfering. Or controlling. He paused. In truth, I was afraid of being rejected. The young man stared at him. You? Yes, the old man replied. Even at my age, fear still finds its way in. The room felt warmer now, less formal. The young man shifted in his seat. I wasn't brave either, he admitted quietly. I was ashamed. The old man listened. I kept thinking I would fix things first, the young man said. Then I would come back. He let out a slow breath. But things kept getting worse. The old man nodded. I thought if you saw me struggling, the young man continued, you'd see me as a failure. The words trembled as they left his mouth. I already felt like one, he added. The old man leaned forward slightly. I never stopped seeing you as family, he said. The young man shook his head. I stopped seeing myself that way. That truth hung between them. I was scared, the young man admitted. Scared you'd look at me and only see mistakes. The old man exhaled slowly. I made you believe that, he said. And for that, I am sorry. No one rushed to fill the silence. It was not uncomfortable now. It was necessary. The baby stirred, letting out a soft sound. The young man instinctively rose and picked him up, holding him close. The old man watched quietly. That child, he said, changes everything. The young man nodded. I thought he was proof of how badly I'd failed. The old man shook his head firmly. No. He stood and stepped closer. He is proof that you stayed. The young man looked down at the baby. Tiny fingers curled around his shirt. I didn't leave, he whispered. And that matters, the old man said. The baby opened his eyes briefly, unfocused but calm. The room seemed to pause around that small moment. For a long time, the old man said, I believed legacy was about what I built. He glanced around the room. The house. The land. The name. He looked back at the baby. I was wrong. The young man listened. Legacy, the old man said, is about what we protect. The young man felt tears rise but did not hide them this time. I don't know how to trust again, he admitted. The old man nodded. You don't have to. Not yet. He spoke calmly. Trust isn't repaired in a day. It grows quietly. The young man breathed out, relieved by the lack of pressure. We will speak honestly, the old man said. Even when it's uncomfortable. The young man nodded. We will not pretend the past didn't happen, the old man added. But we won't live inside it either. The baby let out a soft yawn. The young man smiled faintly. He deserves better than that. Yes, the old man said. He does. They stood there for a moment, 3 generations in one quiet room. The past had not been erased. But it had been faced. And for the first time, it did not feel like a weight. It felt like a door, finally open. The days that followed were quiet, steady, and deliberate. There were no grand announcements, no dramatic changes overnight. The old man believed that real rebuilding happens slowly, through routine and consistency, not sudden gifts. The young man noticed this almost immediately. He was not handed money. He was not told his problems were over. Instead, he was given something unfamiliar. Structure. Each morning began the same way. The baby woke early, as babies do. The young man fed him, changed him, and walked the quiet halls until sleep returned. Someone showed him where supplies were kept, but no one hovered. Trust was offered carefully, not blindly. After breakfast, the old man would ask simple questions. Not demands. Not commands. How did the night go? Did you rest at all? What does the baby need today? The young man answered honestly. Some nights were hard. Some mornings felt heavy. But he did not hide it anymore. Medical appointments were scheduled. Parenting support followed. Not judgmental lessons, but guidance. How to recognize signs of stress. How to care for himself so he could care for the baby. At first, the young man felt embarrassed sitting in those rooms. He worried he was being watched, measured, tested. Then he realized something. No one was trying to take the baby from him. That fear had lived inside him for so long that it had shaped every decision. Once it eased, something else became possible. Learning. The old man sat with him one afternoon at a simple table, papers spread between them. Not contracts. Options. There are paths, the old man said. Not shortcuts. The young man nodded. Education came first. Not because it sounded good, but because it opened doors that stayed closed otherwise. Courses that could be done slowly. Skills that led to real work. You'll choose, the old man said. But you'll commit. The young man agreed. Work followed. Not a position handed down, but an opportunity to start from the bottom. Show up. Be on time. Learn. Earn. The first day, the young man left early, nervous like someone starting over from nothing. He came back exhausted. But he came back proud. I didn't quit, he said quietly. The old man nodded. That matters. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The young man learned how to balance responsibility and exhaustion. How to ask for help before things broke. How to admit when he didn't know something. Trust grew, not because it was given freely, but because it was earned. Mistakes still happened. Late nights. Frustration. Moments when old habits tried to return. But this time, he didn't run. He spoke. I'm struggling, he would say. And instead of silence, he received guidance. The baby grew stronger. Louder. More curious. Laughter replaced crying more often than not. The old man watched from a distance, careful not to interfere. He understood now that support did not mean control. One evening, as the young man rocked the baby to sleep, he realized something had changed. He was no longer afraid of tomorrow. The old man noticed it too. The way the young man stood straighter. The way he spoke with intention instead of apology. You're building something, the old man said one night. The young man looked up. I am, he replied. Not wealth. Stability. Not status. Dignity. The past had not been erased. It never would be. But it no longer defined the future. A broken family line does not heal with grand gestures. It heals with patience. With effort. With presence. And slowly, quietly, that lineage began to mend, not through entitlement, but through responsibility past. Time did what it always does when given patience. It moved forward. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But steadily. The seasons changed around the estate. Cold mornings softened into warm afternoons. Trees that once stood bare filled with leaves again. Inside the house, life followed a rhythm that felt earned, not borrowed. The baby learned to sit, then crawl, then stand with uncertain steps. Laughter echoed through halls that had once felt too quiet. Small toys appeared in corners. Soft blankets stayed within reach. The young man changed too. Not into someone unrecognizable, but into someone grounded. He worked. He learned. He came home tired in honest ways. Some days were harder than others, but he no longer carried them alone. The old man watched all of this with quiet attention. He did not interfere. He did not direct. He simply stayed present. One evening, they sat together outside as the sky faded into dusk. The baby slept nearby, wrapped in comfort rather than worry. I spent most of my life believing success was measured by what I built, the old man said. The young man listened. Property. Influence. Control, the old man continued. I thought providing meant distance. He paused. I was wrong. The young man nodded slowly. I learned something too, he said. That silence doesn't make you strong. The old man looked at him. I thought asking for help meant I had failed, the young man continued. Now I know it meant I was human. The baby stirred, making a small sound, then settled again. The old man smiled faintly. That child, he said, will never remember the bridge. The young man looked down at the sleeping face. But he'll grow up knowing he was never a burden. Yes, the old man replied. Only a beginning. They sat in silence for a while, the good kind that did not ask to be filled. The past was still there. Mistakes had not vanished. Regret had not been erased. But regret no longer led the story. Connection did. The old man finally understood what all his years of work had failed to teach him. Wealth could open doors, but presence kept them open. The young man understood something just as important. Strength was not standing alone. It was knowing when to reach out. The baby grew surrounded by safety instead of shame, by support instead of silence, by hands that showed up. And that became the lesson that lasted. Sometimes the greatest rescue is not money or power. It is choosing to show up before it's too